Hello and welcome to Against the Storm version 0.53, the Cycled Reforged update. In this version we get the long-anticipated, frequently announced new world map. It brings with it a whole host of changes to the way the world map functions and the way that the whole metagame functions for that matter. And we're going to kind of go through those changes as we go through the updates. And I'm going to go into a couple of my saves to show you some of the different things that we can see from the Citadel, from the point of view of those two saves. So there are a few new features available in the world map: ancient seals, the Viceroy's caravan, world map events. And there's also a new upgrade for faction trade routes, which replaces the factions establishing cities. When you launch the game after installing this update, you'll be presented with a question, unless you are a very recently started or new player to the game. You'll be asked if you want to make a progress transfer. You have the choice to start from Settler, where the ancient seals on the map, which we'll get into what those are in a little bit, start out at the simplest level, and you have to unlock each one to move your way up back through the difficulty levels. Or you can choose to skip straight to the highest difficulty level that you have completed. And while the patch notes say that it skips you to the difficulty level matching your highest one prestige game, in effect, it actually skips you to your highest level difficulty completed. As you all know, if you've watched my series, I've only been playing as high as Viceroy. I have not played Prestige yet, and I was able on my main Steam save to skip straight to Viceroy. I didn't have to have completed a Prestige level. So that's just a little bit of a correction or a thing that I noticed when I was going through the notes and comparing it to what my experience is. And they also made an announcement in the patch notes before we get into the actual details. They have now 500,000 players. I assume that means units sold, but I assume anyway. Yeah, that's probably what that is. And there's a neat piece of artwork if you're interested in game-related artwork that's available in the Steam notes, or the notes on Steam, as well as in the press kit if you want to download it. So, the Cycled Reforged. The biggest issue with the game is that, or with the metagame, with the world map, is there was no real challenge, no real question. There's no real problem to solve as part of doing it. You played a handful of maps, you made it through however many years the cycle was, then the cycle ended and you started over again. Yes, you got to keep all of the resources you collected, all the unlocks, all the deeds, all of that, but there was no real progression within the world map itself. So this new update changes that, and they've added a few new things to do so. This new system called Ancient Seals. And we're going to jump into one of the world maps in a few minutes, but I wanted to show you just kind of what they're showing in the patch notes first. So on this, you can see there are two different types of ancient seals on the map. There are 4 total, but there are 2 different types. They start out bronze, and then they go to silver, gold, platinum, and who knows after that. I honestly don't know where they go beyond that, but I know that they go at least to platinum, and we'll see those when we log into one of the save games. So the seals are, according to the lore, old intricate structures built by a long-forgotten civilization meant to hold a primeval, malevolent force at bay. And so these seals have weakened over the millennia, and it's our job to fix them by getting there, by embarking on enough, departures, enough cities, enough towns, completing enough towns to move our way out toward one of the seals and seal it. The seals have a restriction on when you can play in their zone, within the one tile, the tile right next to the seal kind of thing. And those restrictions are that the Blight Storm is almost there. That is, the cycle is ending. You have a sufficient number of seal fragments, which we'll get to those in just a moment. And the seal is within the embarkation range, that is, of your last town. Now, the seal itself has a special biome surrounding it called the Sealed Forest. Right now, the Sealed Forest looks like a Cursed Royal Woodlands, but in probably the next major update, I mean, there may be a smaller update, in 2 weeks, and that might be 4 weeks out, or 6 weeks even. The next major update will contain a brand new biome, which we'll see a little preview of in the last screenshot that I have from the patch notes. But here you can see that the seal as you're approaching it, and you have to obviously start a town in a tile adjacent to a seal, and then that allows you to reseal, to reforge the seal, and that will also extend your cycle by a few years for completing the first time you complete each type of seal, and you can also then unlock later types of seals, the aforementioned bronze, silver, gold, platinum, etc. So the seal fragments are the second component of the, and I said we would get to those in a moment, are the second component of when you can actually do this. By completing a town, any town, you get seal fragments. And you also get the option for seal fragments by winning a game. I'm assuming winning. It says playing, but I'm assuming winning a game near negative modifier tiles. So you use those seal fragments to reforge the seal and win that particular event, for lack of a better word. The next new system is the Viceroy's Caravan. In the past, for many updates now, when you finish a town, you're able to embark from that town or any other town, including the Citadel, for your next town. That is no more. Now you must embark from the town you just finished, which makes the progression across the world map a bit more linear, because you can't just say, I'm going to go back back to the Citadel and go off in a completely different direction, or I'm going to go off on a tangent from the second town I finished instead of going off of the one I just finished, which is the fourth town, for example. So now you have to embark from the town you just finished. But since there are no competitors on the world map, those factions are gone now, it's not as big of a deal to not be able to move around. Yeah, you kind of want to work your way toward maybe some world modifier tiles, which are still question marks on the map, by the way. You can still see those here. But you may also want to work your way toward one of the seals to get to a seal as the cycle is finishing. Now, since you have to do it as the cycle is finishing, I'm wondering if people will end up like circling around one of those tiles just to keep producing or keep advancing towns until the cycle gets close, and then taking on that seal as part of the final step in their cycle. We'll have to see how that pans out, but I suspect that'll be what happens if you really want to advance that seal. Now, if it's just a seal you've already completed, maybe you keep going on beyond it, or turn there and go to another seal or something like that. But we'll have to see kind of how it plays out. There's also a new type of point of interest on the world map, in addition to the modifier tiles. These are world events. Their main purpose is to offer some kind of decision or challenge, as well as make the world map feel a lot more exciting and alive. Events are closely tied to a new mechanic, caravan upgrades, and by solving them, you'll be rewarded with additional embarkation goods, villagers, or temporary buffs, as well as seal fragments, embarkation points, and so on. These will be added to your starting caravans and influence your future settlements, but only for the duration of the current cycle. And you can kind of see some of those, not here, but that's actually a good thing that I should have showed a minute ago when we were talking about the caravan. You can see up in the upper right, there's now a caravan on the last town, and that's the one you can embark from to continue your adventure. So here's a few examples of some of the resupply that you get from the world events. Modifiers also got a refresh in this update. Actually, this is for the modifiers, excuse me. Winning a game near a negative modifier will now give you a new special reward, the Royal Resupply. And that's these 3 bonuses here that we mentioned earlier. You can get reserve embarkation points. These are a separate pool of embarkation points that are applicable for the entire cycle, but they do not refill for each map. So, right now I think we get about 8 at Viceroy 7 or 8 as we've been playing. This will give you a few more that you can choose to use on any of your remaining towns in this cycle. But once they're gone, they're gone. They do not refill like the regular embarkation points do for every town. You can get a temporary boost to your embarkation range, so if you'd like to skip out further for some reason, you can now do that. And you can get additional seal fragments, as previously mentioned. The map is divided now into difficulty rings. So after you reach a certain distance, you have to increase your difficulty. No more steamrolling through Settler, for example, just to get to, say, one of these new seals and pushing your way through that seal. You now have to complete towns at a higher difficulty level the further out you go. But the Settler ring is very large, so those of you who are newer players don't have to worry about being forced into a higher difficulty you're not ready for yet. You can easily complete games, you can easily finish the seals. That obviously there's Settler level seals, those are the bronze ones. You can easily finish those as part of your, within plenty of room in the Settler ring. What it also does is it keeps people from sort of cheesing the end of the cycle and getting a few quick towns in at the end for some extra bonus that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do at a higher difficulty level. Also, the modifier tiles you get a higher chance of spawning the negative ones, which give those extra benefits there, the Royal Resupply benefits. The further out you go from the Citadel. So that also helps keep you from getting a bunch of these resupplies just by using the Settler difficulty further away from the Citadel. So the future is the next major update, which will include the new Sealed Forest biome. It still has a very dark look, similar to the Cursed Royal Woodlands. But obviously it also is very different, and this is a work in progress. This is a sample, sort of, or a beta version, maybe an alpha version, since the whole game is in beta still. An alpha version of this biome. So there will probably be changes to what you see here, but you can kind of get the idea that it's going to be a very dark and foreboding looking biome. There were a lot of FAQs in this update, and I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but there's a few that I wanted to talk about. There's a question of, is there any content gated behind the difficulty zones? No. However, as I mentioned, the modifier tiles, the negative modifier tiles, which give you that benefit, that Royal Resupply, have a much higher chance of spawning as the difficulty gets higher, as you get further and further from the Citadel. So in that respect, there is some gated, but there's still a chance for every single modifier tile, both positive and negative, to spawn within the Settler ring. They're also considering adding cosmetic rewards for completing seals in the future. They haven't decided how that'll work yet, but they, at least in that case, they're not a deal breaker. Like you don't have to have done them, because cosmetic stuff is just cosmetic stuff. So it's not that big of an impact. There's a lot of detail in the patch notes as well. This was the summary version of the patch notes, but I think what I want to do before we go into any more of the details is actually just go into one of the world map views. So let's do that. I'm here in my test game, which is actually immediately after the tutorial at the moment, because I deleted it and reran it at some point in the past. And so you can see here that the world map is, of course, very much bigger, much bigger. There are a lot of question marks on the map, which are modifier tiles or chests. I'm assuming chests still exist. But there are also 2, because there can be between 2 and 4. There are 2 seals. They are both bronze seals because this game is right after the tutorial. If we were to embark, we would be only able to pick... Actually, we should only be able to pick... I guess you can pick the higher ones. But we can play even as low as Settler here. And these require you to play at Settler to defeat them, which should be fine for every player out there, at least by the time they make it out that far. And you can see the consequences, the rewards and the consequences. The requirements, of course, is minimum difficulty of Settler, and you need 4 seal fragments to seal it. The rewards are plus 10% Citadel resources at the end of the cycle. So this is what replaces that competition that we were having with the other factions. And so however many resources you collect through your adventures in the cycle, if you complete this bronze seal at the end of your cycle over here, then you can get 10% additional of those accumulated resources, which is pretty good bonus. And then of course there's a consequence, which is the cycle duration is permanently increased by 8. If you notice down here, now we actually have a timer or a counter on the cycle. It is 32 years. So at Settler, 3 or 4 years probably per town for moderately decent player, maybe faster for a better player. Maybe six or 7 years for a new player. So you could easily get in 5 or 6 to maybe 10 towns in this first cycle. But if you do a seal, then your cycle duration is permanently increased by 8, which means when you reset the Blightstorm cycle, then it'll be 40, and so on. As each seal is sealed, or as each seal is reforged, I should say, you gain additional years in your cycle. That only happens, I think, once per seal type. I believe that's what the patch notes said, that it only happens once per seal type. So once you complete that first bronze seal, you complete as many as you want, but you don't actually get that same reward or consequence, from my understanding. That I could be incorrect on that, but that's the way that it seems. And so this is what the new player will see immediately upon finishing the tutorial. Of course, we have a few additional items you can read here in the help, in the atlas, the encyclopedia in game here. So if you want additional information on any of these things, of course you can do that. We also have a new icon up here that kind of replaces the section where the factions were, and that is this seal fragments counter, which of course goes along with these 3 as being the Citadel resources. But the seal fragments, obviously you need to collect these and turn them in, or use them, I guess, to reforge the seal on these ancient seals. Now, at the end of the cycle, if you have any fragments left over, they will be sold back to the Crown in exchange for Citadel resources. So you do not carry these from cycle to cycle. They're only locked in. They're locked into the cycle in which you collect them. So, for example, if we decided to take this Statue of the Forefathers world map modifier, along with this Ominous Presence world map modifier, now that means we're going to get 2 royal resupplies upon finishing, say, this marshlands town between the 2, which is kind of a nice thing. Like that's a really good bonus by doing those negative things. And of course you get a lot of resources too from these. I mean, it's only a small amount there because it's at Settler. If we put this up to Viceroy to kind of be able to compare a little bit better, you can see there you get a decent amount of resources from those, but you get a decent amount of resources from most of these as well. So that's not a bad thing either. So I want to go now back to the menu, and I want to switch into this profile we've been using so far on the Steam series. And by the way, I was prompted with that question on this save as to whether I wanted to start at Settler and do all the seals, or whether I wanted to start at Viceroy. And I chose Viceroy. I thought about doing the settler one. That would probably put a seal almost right here at the edge of the map, which is kind of funny. So that's why I didn't. If you really want to see that, I can fire up the old epic save, which I do have, and we can start that. I'll appreciate any feedback you give on that. But without any, any other preference, I think I like the idea of starting at the difficulty level we've been playing at, with all the time we've spent in the game so far. So we have 2 seal types. We have 4 total seals, I think. We have a gold seal and platinum seal, platinum, gold here. So the gold seals require 35 seal fragments and Viceroy difficulty to complete them. You get an additional 16% Citadel resources at the end of the cycle, and the cycle duration is permanently increased by 32. Now this number is not additive. This number is cumulative. So that 32 is not, oh, you did the 8, and then you did the 16, and now you did the 32. No, it's just 32. So now the Blightstorm cycles are 64. And that's a little bit of a confusing wording, but it's consistent with other wording in the game, so I'm okay with it. And as you can see also here, we've gotten credit for having completed a gold seal before. So while we can use it to get more rewards at the end of the cycle, we cannot use it to get that additional consequence. That's a one-time only thing, and you can see that here. Now, let's say I wanted to complete this platinum seal. I need to be at Prestige 5 to complete this seal successfully, and I'll get 18% Citadel resources at the end of the cycle, and I'll get an additional cycle duration increased by 8 more, which means that I think it'll probably show by 40 there in that box when we actually do it. So it's a little bit of a weird, like, confusing misnomer, a little bit, I think, but I think it's understandable as well. So there are 2 seals we can go for here. I don't see myself getting to Prestige 5 in the super near future, so we'll probably just do a normal kind of run and end up at one of the gold seals as part of the next set of towns that we do. The biggest issue is, since we're starting out at 0 here, as far as from the smoldering city, getting there and then lasting through that 64 is going to be a few towns, unless I'm able to play some towns off camera. And I'd like some feedback on that as well, as to whether you want me to play some towns off camera to get to that point, to be able to do that seal. So yeah, let me know that thought as well. Let's look at some other details in the patch notes. There are 8 total types of seals with distinct names and symbols. So we've seen 3 of them. There's a 4th one that would be in between. It'd be the silver one. And then there are additional ones as you go up the prestige ladder. Let's see. By the way, the biome that is around each of these seals right now is Accursed Royal Woodlands in appearance, because they haven't finished the biome, the new biome yet. So the Sealed Forest biome. So even though it will appear to be Accursed Royal Woodlands, it will have the effects of the Sealed Forest. So to keep that in mind. The faction trade routes that I mentioned earlier replaces the old faction town system and the old competition system. So now, as you get to an upgrade that I don't exactly know where it is, but there's an upgrade in here somewhere where you unlock faction, the faction trading. And effectively, that's saying that each of the factions has a spot here in the Citadel where they have like ownership or trading rights or whatever you want to call it, and they are trading with you from here. So it works kind of like those pending town trade routes that you get during your first town. So that works. And to be fair, I mean, we have the Brass Order, which is, that's not them. One of these is the Brass Order. One of these is Yeah, the Breast Forge. So they kind of, I mean, the factions kind of align with these names anyway. So it kind of makes some sense that they would be here as well and have some authority here in the town. And so, and plus the whole competition thing was to be honest kind of lame. So I'm glad it's gone. I'm glad that they found another way to have trading with additional towns at the beginning. But I'm glad that system is gone, because it was kind of a frustrating endeavor as well. Modifiers spawn differently now on the world map. Within the settler ring, you are more likely to find the green ones, the positive ones, which is kind of amusing that most of them aren't. But you're more likely to find the positive ones than the negative ones. And as you work your way out, the positive ones wane, and the negative ones become more and more popular, which is fine too, because you want that additional difficulty the further you go out. So having things like Statue of the Forefathers out further makes more sense than having Watchtower out further, for example. And it also helps new players so that they can start near some of the easy ones and help them with their progress in the early part of the game before you've unlocked a lot of things in the Citadel and whatnot. And then they can push out from there to some of the more difficult ones as they're ready to crank up their challenge level. Starting caravans are much smaller. 6 to 8 people in the base caravan. You can still have the option for 2 additional newcomers and 3 additional newcomers as part of that embarkation bonus. So the maximum you can have now is 13. I'm okay with it. It's gonna put a wrench in our 3 woodcutter strategy, but we can probably still pull it off in some cases, or at least have more than 6 woodcutter citizens and have 7, 8 maybe. We'll see how it works out, but I mean at the least it's only 1 less person, so it's not that huge of an impact. But just keep an eye on that. And the embarkation point cost for planks can now be 3 as well as 2 embarkation points for planks. So keep that in mind, that you may start having to pay 3 for planks sometimes. They listed where the new Citadel upgrades are, which ones were changed, which ones were moved, things like that. I'm not going to read through those. Games won, lost, or abandoned before year 3 now always progress the cycle by 3 years, no matter what. This is to make it harder to avoid negative cycle effects by winning quick settler games or abandoning settlements. So you can before you kind of push your way through without even winning any towns to a different area, or to reset like one of the modifiers that you didn't like, and then go there again and play it. Now you're going to lose 3 years if you try that, which means you're going to push your way across this progress bar for the cycle much faster, much further, and get you to the end of the storm where you have to reset much sooner if you try that strategy now. The perk HUD's been cleaned up, so we'll hopefully enjoy that, having fewer icons down here, but the ones that are there are much more explanatory. Other tweaks to various wording, and some of the cornerstones may have been tweaked as well. Looks like Stormforged ones. And of course, a list of bug fixes as well that I don't think we really need to read through, but just keep an eye on that. Finally, daily expeditions and training expeditions no longer progress the cycle. So they are there just as side events, effectively. So you don't have to worry about, I did a daily. I don't want to do a daily because I don't want to progress my cycle. You can do as many dailies as you want. You can do as many training expeditions as you want. It will not progress your cycle. The cycle only progresses by actually moving your caravan on an embarkation, which is really nice too. And so yes, this was a little bit longer than most patch notes reads, but I think kind of showing through this new world map was useful. Let me know your feedback on that. I don't like to make these long, but I wanted to make sure that I covered this well. Also, for those of you who do watch the regular series, it will be delayed this week, probably not starting until Monday or Tuesday. That is because of the Steam Next Fest that's going on right now. I'm working through a few demos, or playing a bunch of demos and featuring many of them on my channel. And so I want to continue doing that through this week. So look for the new series starting on Monday or Tuesday, which means you have until Sunday or possibly Monday to provide any feedback on any of the questions I asked in this video. So thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now.